so it's part 2 of my Mixolydian lesson. I decided I'm going to break up Mixolydian into 3 different lessons because there's just so much to talk about. The reason there's a lot to talk about is because Mixolydian gets used a lot. It gets used in jazz, it gets used in rock, it gets used in blues. So there's a lot of territory to cover when we're dealing with Mixolydian. Now, just to review, if you didn't see the last one, you should go back and check that out. But I'll just review a little bit here. Mixolydian is the 5th mode of the major scale. It's called Mixolydian, but a lot of people just call it the dominant scale because it works for dominant chords. And an easy way to find it, if you need it quick, you just think up a 4th. You got G7 in a chart. You want to play Mixolydian, you think up a 4th. Up a 4th is G, A, B, C. So you play a C major scale, and you're going to get the G Mixolydian mode, okay? And I discussed it a little bit in the last lesson, but the definitive chord is a sus chord, like a G7 sus or a G9 sus or a G13 sus. And in the last lesson, that's what we used it over. I also explained that it works fine in like a blues. The approach is a little bit different. You don't want to use what I call the improvisational tools as much maybe in a blues, although you can, but let's review those tools as well. So you can play a minor pentatonic scale on the 2nd, on the 5th, and on the 6th. And those are great minor pentatonic scales that will work over this chord, especially if it's a sus chord. What would that be? For a G chord, it would be A minor pentatonic scale, D minor pentatonic scale, and E minor pentatonic scale. Keep in mind, E minor pentatonic scale over this G sus chord or a G7 chord, it's really just G major pentatonic scale, right? That's an important point to remember for today's lesson. Now also, you can play triads, major triads. You can play any of the triads, of course, but the major triads work very well. And you can play them on the 4th, on the flat 7, and on the root, okay? So that would be C triad, F triad, and G triad. These are all great motif-making tools for Mixolydian. So let's keep that in mind before we go on to the next subject. Now, that being said, today we're talking about more of a rock situation. Remember, we sort of covered like the funk jazz, if you want to call it. And then we talked a little bit about like the shuffle kind of blues, kind of G7. Not a sus, but it's just a G7. Today we're talking about more of a rock thing. Now, when we play the rock thing, you see it a lot like this. It could go either way. F over G. Or G. F over G. You see a lot like that, like Freeway Jam or something like that, right, by Jeff Beck. Now, so in this kind of situation, Mixolydian is a great choice, but of course, the blues scale and just plain old blues is going to work good too. If you listen to like what Jeff Beck did in Freeway Jam, he plays just a lot of, blues ideas. But that's not the only thing that you have to do. You can do Mixolydian too. Some of those same tools are going to work that we just described. But there's one thing I want you to sort of keep in mind here, and I'm going to explain it really slowly. So every scale has a matching pentatonic scale, right? And any of the major type of modes, like the major scale, also known as the Ionian mode, or like the Lydian scale we haven't got to yet, or the Mixolydian scale that we're working on today. All those 3 scales have a major pentatonic scale, right? Major pentatonic scale is a 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 scale. The problem with the pentatonics, the major pentatonic scale for these major chords, is that it doesn't have any of like the modal extensions, right? Like it doesn't have the 4 in it, right? And so there's a trick that you can do, and I suggest you try this with all your modes. You can take the minor pentatonic scale formula, which is 1, in the case of a minor pentatonic scale, 1 flat 3 4 5 flat 7. So in the case of G, minor pentatonic scale, root, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. Right? Now, what if we take the same 1, 3, 4, 5, 7 formula and use it in the Mixolydian scale? Well, now you're going to have this: 1, major 3, 4, 5, flat 7, root. So this is a great sound for Mixolydian, especially in a rock situation, but really anywhere. Jan Hammer made this scale famous. Some people call it the dominant pentatonic scale. Some people call it the Jan Hammer scale. But check out the demo, and you'll see. And so give it a try. If you want the backing track, go get it at Patreon. If you want the PDF, along with the one from the part 1, go get that too. Okay, so try it and tell me how it goes.